a YouTube stream. How will this work a live stream? It should be private, so you shouldn't see. So what we're going to test out is the how live coding with GTA mods actually working. So I should be recording a live stream, a private one. So I'm trying to find that first. Let me just switch over to the browser so we see that. Why is not my channel showing anything? So it says it's creating YouTube. So okay, stream now. We are now actually on a live stream. This seems to be working well actually. So I should also now be able to switch into the game mode and test out the game. And let's see if that's also now being applied to the live stream. Can I go back a bit? So you don't see my game. Yes, you do actually. So this is also working. But what about to the live stream? Can I go back a bit? So you don't see my game. Yes, you do actually. All right, this should be exciting. This is an experiment we're having. I have been working with a GTA mod for a long time. I call it Scene Director, and I wanted to try out the live stream coding of that. This is the first time I've ever done this, and I hope the setup is working more or less. This is streaming through YouTube live streaming. The recording is done through the XSplit broadcaster. So you should be able to see, while I'm working with the code, you should be able to see the game as we're playing it, and also whatever things we're looking up, a reference for the code and stuff like that. So the mod has been lying dead for a bit, and I've been stuck on this feature called a gunfighting recording. So maybe not so much stuck, but haven't been able to have time to work with it. The code here is a bit messy, but I think I understand the structure. It's sort of a project which is just grown and grown, so I never really had time to do proper refactoring. So, but what we want to see here today is around how we're actually recording the actions people have, and then it should be, let's see, it should be so this is recording, stop all recordings. Let's just find out where we're actually doing this. So this shouldn't really be that difficult. So start replaying. This is the actual where we're replaying the animation, where we are actually recording, which has the main logic is oh, this is a long time since I've been looking at it. Forward. So here we are. This code seems familiar. So this is the action record scene for actor, which has all the logic. It's grown really complicated because you need to do different operations based on what sort of state the user is, if it's in a vehicle or if it's on foot, wherever. And not only do we need to determine what actions actually to record, we also need to find out how often should we record these events, because these events are then being played back afterwards. So I'll show you just where our code is. So the code is around here. So basically whenever you're free aiming, so when you're actually aiming down the sights, we will try to record the gun firing. And that should then be able to catch these events. So we won't record if you're shooting without aiming. The current code doesn't cover that, and most likely it won't cover it either. So the recording, I think, is working quite well now with the different weapon impacts. So basically what we're saying is that if we're free aiming, we will try to check for or try to record new recording events every 10 milliseconds or every 10 ticks within the game, which is not necessarily the same. And then we just basically check if we've had an impact, meaning a bullet has hit somewhere. We get which weapon the actor is using. We are performing some tricks on the delta speeds. We're seeing if you're walking or not while you're shooting. And based on that, we set the walk speed, which we need when we replay this, so you're not standing still while you're replaying it. We're getting the heading you actually have, and then we're creating this recording item, which is then the representation of all the data we need to have to replay this afterwards. And we're basically just pushing it into a vector and logging to a file. So we can then see a bit more which is being done. And the actual replay of this is that for each of these recording, we have a subtype, and this then is actor shoot that by impact recording, and that is over here. And yeah, basically there's a common interface for all of these recording items. You have a constructor, you have a toString methods, and then you have perhaps the most interesting one about executing the natives. So whatever functions you need to, or the GTA API you need to execute when you are playing back this recording item, you need to do here. So, and the last method we have is a check if this recording item is completed, where you then can check if you've actually done the whole action you need in the recording item. And then there's a separate sort of a post task if you want to clear up something afterwards. So there's a whole engine around this, sort of just calling this interfaces for all the recording items at the intervals sort of set by how long time difference there is when we're recording it. So this is actually what's happening now with we're recording gun recording. We're basically disabling all controls on the user or from the player. Because if they are moving the mouse or doing other actions, the playback of the recording won't work. Then we're basically loading the weapon which was in the recording. We're getting the current location of the actor. We are checking if they're in a vehicle or not, because if they're in a vehicle, we're trying to do some special handling. Last time I checked, this wasn't working good at all, because it's not really easy to get him to shoot from a vehicle. It's easier on foot, so that might be a secondary feature, but at least the code needs to handle that different. Then it's what happens if you're not in a vehicle. We're checking, and we have two different possibility here. If you're actually walking while you're doing this, we're calling one native called task go to cord while aiming at cord. Here there are some parameters which has not been documented yet, so we test them out, especially around this heading and this value here. So that's part of what we want to try out here. So this basically will get the actor to move to a specific location while he's aiming at where we recorded the bullet was hitting. And if they're not walking, we've tested out a few different natives for this. And as far as I recall, it works better if you're not. Oh, it's actually now it works better when you are not moving, I think, but we'll test that out in a second. And the last thing is there is a native then for actually firing the shot, so which happens independent of this task where he's moving. So that's good, because we can't really execute two tasks in parallel. You can execute them in sequence if you create a task sequence, but not at the same time. So that's one of the limitations you have with the native. All right, let's see a bit here. Oh, we actually have some people watching stream. Yes, this is. So let's swap over to the game itself, and we'll just show you how the gun feature is working right now, which is what we will be starting with. So I have an actor here. I think I'll remove this actor here. So let me just check if I have some weapons. I don't, so I just need to use a different mod to get weapons. Give me weapons. Then we should. I've been testing this with some different weapons, but the best is, I guess, the most thing people want to record with will be an automatic gun, so that's what I'm trying. So now just bring up the scene director mod and just recording a scene here. So you need to be aiming to actually record this. This is a test with just standing still, what the current version is. And then if we're moving at the same time and aiming, we'll do a second test. And the third test is more to run over here and actually turn direction as well, because then we will see a bit more how that works. And then I'm just walking over here random and see how that works. So we're stopping the recording and we'll just try to test it now. So this is the current code. So you now see it's not aiming, but it's firing at the right positions. It's standing still as it's supposed to do. And now we're moving, and it actually seems to be working a bit better when you're moving, because it's aiming it properly and not just, not aiming it. This one, well, it's actually turning now, but it doesn't seem to be firing correctly. But I think it's because it's standing still. So for some reason it works better when I'm moving. So let's go back into the code view and see what we can do. I guess the last thing I was working on here is to understand why. Yeah, I might not have the latest version of the code, so I'm just building the code now. So all the code development is done in Visual Studio, and once you've done the change in Visual Studio, you need to copy the ASI file over to the folder of the GTA directory. And there is a trick for developers. Well, you're probably not seeing my screen now, but let me just tell you about it. I think if you create a file in your GTA folder called script hook vdev, that allows you to actually unload all the mods quite quickly. So if I'm then into Rockstar, I press Ctrl R, and then it actually unloads all the mods. This just prevents me from having to restart the whole game just to update the mod here. So I'm just gonna make sure now I have the latest version of the mod before I run the test. So you don't see this, but I'm basically just copying over a file into the game directory and Control R again to actually load it. So now it's restarting. So I'm just gonna make Let's run a new test on this. Okay, so this is a bit odd. It's not what I would have expected. Because this is the code being executed. So basically seeing that it's running about the same thing. It's standing at a certain location and it's timer at the same location, and these parameters here are the same as well. So it seems like this native, it probably finishes when it comes to the chord here. So that's why it's not really aiming. So most likely we should not have this here. Oh, I'm sorry, this is if you're actually moving. So this I feel is working well, this one is not working well. So let's test this other one I've been working with. This is a different native, so I can show you just the documentation of the natives by switching into the browser screen here. So these are the natives collected most graciously by the Script.V team and a lot of the mod developers. It gives you a lot of, well, what we have of details about how the API or natives work for GTA. So I'm just gonna find that native which I'm looking at here. So this is the task aim gunner chord, and basically what you see here, nobody's really adding native documentation, but you can see a lot about of this based on the parameters. The pad is basically just an integer ID of the user actually working with, and here the XYZ will just be coordinates on where you want them to aim at. Time is probably how many ticks, or roughly compared to milliseconds, you want to do this, and there's 2 Boolean attributes at the end, which I've been using with value 1, so true. There is also decompiled, so all the scripts from GTA have been decompiled, and these basically, there's probably a tool which Rockstar has which makes you create maps and yeah, what have you, and when you're reading the code from this, it's just an ugly mess, but it gives you some idea of what parameters they typically actually send into yeah, the program, and then we can send of course the same parameters here. So again, I haven't set up a view of, I'm just opening the files now in Sublime, so but I don't have a view for it, so I'm just gonna see if I can find any mentions of this this native. So I'm just searching around for all of them, seeing that in most cases the last parameter is 0. There's actually one instance where it's not, it's 0, 0 or 1 or 0. And we can also then check, another good source is the GTA 5 forums, which I haven't been in. Oh. So on the GTA forums, it's, I guess, no, it's under the modding. So this coding is probably the best, where you can get help and discuss actually how to do things. I haven't been logged in here on a long time. Let me just go to the top level and just see if anybody has been working with this here. So nobody's really used this before. So I think for a lot of things we're working with the Scene Director mod, nobody else has really tried to do the same thing, so it's hard to get assistance, most of it. All right, then I'm just gonna now test to swap to this other one. So I'll think I'll be starting with double zeros here to see what that is. So I'm just building a new version of it. Then I can go into switching over to the game. We have to unload the mod with Control R. Switching back, and we'll just copy now the image probably stuck at your side, but I'm just copying the files over. Could probably have automated some of this, but haven't been bothered. So back into the game. So now I'll basically run a new version of the here, where the code we're running is now a bit different if your speed, so you're standing still. So just going to test to record now with standing still, and just one when you're moving as well. So it seems to be aiming, but it's a bit more, it's not as accurate as the other ones. I'm not quite sure. So according to this, it should aim around 250 milliseconds. I'm just going to increase this to something big to provoke a response. And yeah, you probably didn't see the code change there. I forgot to swap screens. Basically, I'm just stating that you should wait for about 5 seconds instead of 250 milliseconds. I just want to confirm that that parameter is indeed the wait time for this. There's probably one other thing as well. I'm just watch over the code, because in addition here, what will happen here is that this execute native for recording will be executed when the recording item is being run, and then after quite quickly this is recording item completed will be sent. And here we're basically saying that if it's 0, then we should complete it immediately. That doesn't mean that this task will be cancelled, but it means it will continue to the next it will actually continue to the next recording item, which will then overwrite this task. So we might, I'm just going to test it now to see what impact it had. Sorry, switching over to the game, and then just running a recording. I guess what we will at least see is that the last one will be a lot longer. So now you see it's running like 5 seconds afterwards. It seems to have a good effect though, because it was a lot more stable than it was before. But 5 seconds is a bit long. I'll just try to remove it down to 1 second, see what the effect will be. So I'm loading and going back to the code. So this is the wait time for native. And I'll just deploy a new version again. Alright, let me just check the chat quickly. So the major issue with getting this ready has been my own availability for this project. It's something when you, in a period I was working with this like twice or 3 times every week, but once you take a small break from a project like this, because you don't really have the free time to do it, it's very hard to get into again afterwards. So I might have some time sort of during next week, but then I'll be away in the US for a week as well. So at least it's getting closer, and I might just release what I have now just to get sort of the first version out of there, so some other tasks can be reworked out. Okay, so now I've copied it back to GTA, so I need to swap to the game, reload the mod, assign the game. So the only change now has been that it shouldn't wait that long, it should be waiting for about 1 second, so let's test that. Let's test a bit over here and see how it reacts to that. Yeah. One issue here now is that it sort of seems to be a bit dependent on where the actor is. It doesn't, or at least starts from here, but it doesn't seem to be changing the heading you have actually. So the actor has a heading, so even though, and it doesn't seem, he should have been turning around to actually aim where he's being asked to. Let me just see how different this is if I'm moving. If he's actually... I guess it's an issue here that it doesn't really turn as I want him to do. But it might be actually be enough to... Yeah, let me try to hack this a bit. I think we can just set the heading of the pad, or at least because this one, I think one of these parameters here might be the heading, but I'm not sure. I think it's tested out a bit different values here. So if we go into the browser view, we can check for this native. So this is the one I'm using here. See, there's a whole lot of parameters. I guess it's P10 and P9 I think might be interesting. Sometimes when it's a float parameters, that can be a heading, which basically means which direction is the user facing. But yeah, so I'm just going to test a different value. Well, what's the best way of doing this? Now let me just test out, change the heading. The GTA crashed. That shouldn't really be that will happen sometimes. Let me just retry that. I was thinking on just testing. I think I have some code where I'm just changing the heading of the user, at least during teleportation. So there's a lot of places where you sort of done something one time, so you just need to do it again. So this entity heading is probably what I want to do, so I'm just going to test that. You probably have GTA music as well, so let me get... So I'm just going to test this while standing still first, so basically just telling the actor entity to go to the heading we have, which is this one. So storing the heading when we're recording it. All right, so I'm just gonna copy the new version of the. So the file is locked because GTA is starting. So guess you can now have a look at the GTA intro, which you've probably seen 1,000 times as well. There's the other comment regarding if this should be uploaded or not. I think the good thing about this is this is something which everything else which was there, I think, hasn't been changed for this release. So if I release it and it's not really complete, it's just sort of the firing part of it which will be impacted. It's not, it shouldn't be really that buggy. So let's give it a new try. Well, especially now we need to reload the mod. So I'm just gonna copy the file or try again. So some of the coding is really much like this, that it's just incremental small changes testing out different parameters, while the other ones are where you actually build a lot of codes before you're doing anything at all. And then you're just trying to get everything all together to work. So I'm just going to run over to where we recorded it the last time. So I'm pretty much sure this is not going to be a good sort of test on it. It's going to be very jerky because it's just going to basically teleport the entity over to different ones. But sometimes hacks like these can be very good as well. So interesting. Basically it didn't do anything at all, which is not what I would have expected. So let's just check the code. Also gonna, and basically here also, yeah, you probably can't see this, but the scene director log file contains a heap of information of this because it's really hard to understand exactly what's happening. So I'm just checking that the heading is indeed being recorded, but maybe not in, it sort of looks to be in degrees and not. Okay, let me just check if it's. So basically what I think what I'm seeing is that this is not really the value I would have expected it to be. It's being recorded as something else, which, so it's recording as degrees instead of radians, I guess. So I'm just going to find out where we're actually doing this recording, and this is so I'm just going to check where I'm actually getting the heading. So this is actually the old code we have, which wasn't really working at all. But here we are getting this. This is then the head thing we're getting, which is a float, which should be okay. Just gonna check the coding here. So this is part of the entity namespace, this set heading. And that one, setting the entity heading as well. It might be the task is actually overwriting, hard to see. So I'm just going to disable this task for now and just swapping the heading just to see if it moves like I would expect it to be. So back in the game, the code should now be updated to actually not fire anything. It should just turn the actor where heading was when we were firing. So you're seeing it's now changing the heading, but it's not going to work at all. It's just too jerky. And I can't sort of... Normally I would just run a task where you basically turn your heading, but that won't work here since you're already running a task. So I guess the only approach which will work here is to actually find out what the parameters. Let me see, how can I swap back to the code? We need to find I guess this is one I would expect it to work, but it doesn't include anything for heading, so this would then need to handle actually changing heading. This one, if we try to do this, it seems to just be cancelling it immediately because it's already reached its goal. I guess I can't put a fake location in because it will start moving, so it won't be the right thing. Yeah, just gonna head. Getting it back in 2 seconds. GK crashes again. Probably doesn't like to be run in window mode and switching back and forth. I guess it has to be working that you need to be standing still and firing. So I need to do something here. Check what are the tasks there are. Let's see. If I go into the documentations, and all of these more advanced ones are always in the AI part. This was actually would be the ideal way to doing it, because there is something called scripting, script task, which I don't think anybody's actually solved how you can sort of create new scripts, but these include a lot more details than what we have when we're just recording it with at individual points. We don't have that much control of that. So we don't have an entity. I guess that was the current version of it only works when you're aiming at entities. So whether that's a car or a pet or a vehicle, but now what we've moved instead is that we're actually recording the location of where the gun hits and then replaying that. This is one we're using to aim. Going to entity aiming, that might be. That needs to have an entity which is target, which probably won't help me then, because you won't have an entity here. And then there's some vehicle ones which I've tested out a bit before on the gunfighting, but doesn't seem to be working. This is the one I've been using when you're actually walking. Have I tested with a 0 movement speed here? Test the speed. Oh, I'm actually not passing the speed. That's interesting. So what is the go-to chords? So we're having the location, the impact, and this one, and this might be the speed then. Just gonna try that. Should make a big difference. I could try that with a 0. It might have an impact. So basically the task aim gun at chord doesn't seem to get the rotation of the actor correct. So unless it's being prefixed by some other one, it won't really do the job. A lot of the, I'm just looking at some of the GTA scripts now. A lot of them are actually having making a task sequence, but I can't really do that because there's other actions to be done in the meantime. They're also using something called ped motion state. That actually might be a good idea. So let's go switch over to the browser. So there's something called force motion state. So you basically can force them into two different actions. There is, for example, you can get him to aim with a pistol. Wow, if there's different aiming for each weapon, it's gonna be a lot of work to map these towards the motion state. But it could be interesting to just test this one out. let us try that. So I guess I should force him afterwards. So this was just an example from the scripts where this is basically a hash value, just sort of a unique value which represents that it's an aiming task for a gun. So let's try that. Guess this one doesn't give you any outputs. Okay, so building up the code, and I'll just copy it over to GTA, and then we can sit and watch it start up again. Hopefully GTA should be starting up. Let's try it. Okay. Sorry about this. All right. So just a minor change here now. We're basically forcing them into sort of aiming state afterwards. Let's do a new recording. I guess there's something happening here, but it's basically too quick to have an impact. Forcing him into a state, but I'm not sure exactly what the impact of that is. So I guess here the task is interfering with the other code, so then we can just disable this. Disabling the line with moving to the court. We're just going to force the motion state and then shooting. So redeploying it again. And swapping over to the game. So it definitely does something, force it into the state. Doesn't look too bad, but doesn't look natural either. And it also doesn't really move you sideways, which you need to be doing. I guess there really isn't any other parameters I can pass into it to get that working. Let me just check if there's any in the documentation. But the advantage now is that I'm basically not running any I'm not running any tasks, so I might be able to run a task to turn you over, to sort of just change your heading. So we can't teleport you just, but we can maybe find something with a heading, achieve heading. That might be something we could do. It makes the specified path achieve the heading. Yeah, I'm watching in the browser right now. So this is probably the best I can have. So I'm forcing me into a state afterwards. And then we want to move him into the heading here, and the timeout. Let's just do 100 milliseconds because this will be overwritten by a. So 100 ticks it is. So right, let's swap over to the game and test that change out. Doesn't really seem to have an effect on this range. Just gonna check the log file if I'm actually recording if there was a difference in recording. It's basically saying we're starting out with 109 degrees, then going into 95, then 77 and 60. So that's being recorded and also being played back. But for some reason this achieve heading doesn't seem to be. I would expect him to at least try to move here. I'm just going to do a log statement here just to make sure that we are. About how to log stuff here. This leads to a string, so I'm looking for all of these C++ special things. Yeah. So this basically just gives me a log of this variable just before I'm actually running this check. delete everything in the log file, so I'm not sure I need to go through everything. I'll set up the log file next time I'm doing a stream. Couldn't be bothered now. So then we'll just record the same thing. And then testing it. So and I'm just going to check the log file. Yeah, so I'm seeing the heading being sort of sent into the task, so it's being recorded correctly and it's being played back correctly. That just sort of doesn't do anything. Let me just, which is a bit strange. This has to be one of the most boring live streams ever. Going over the same line of code over and over and desperately trying something new. I sort of believe a bit into the solution. I don't want to give it up yet. I'm just going to disable the other ones now and give it a bit more time to finish. Oh, just check the code from the scripts if they have any mention of this. Well, usually I have a 0 parameter. I'll just add a 0 parameter at the end. Sorry, you don't see my code. So now I just disabled everything besides the chief heading one. And what will happen now is that this one will return, but I guess that will give you a few milliseconds before it's doing, so I think that should be okay. Yeah, just delete the log statement as well. Alright. So then we can reload this again. And now it should just swap heading. See, now it's turning quite well actually. So that works really well, I would say. It's natural flow. So it's basically the other operation which is cancelling it. Could also be that I've changed the parameters. Well, yeah, you didn't see my recording. But at least what we could see is that it worked a lot better than it was before. And I think the main reason for that is that we didn't include any timeout in ticks, and we are not running the other ones. So I think maybe this one should go at least after the pet4 state. So this seems to be working quite well, but maybe this one is cancelling it or something. So I'm just going to force that first. I might actually also need to include a wait or something here, but forcing that there and seeing if that works, and then if that works I'll just include this one as well, which is the shooting one. I guess this one we don't need anymore, and not this one. So then just deploying this again. Really need to spend some time just how to automate this deployment part. It's, yeah, big hassle right now. I think I probably can build the ASI file directly into the folder, and if it's already running, then yeah, and the build just will fail, which is no problem. So let's try it again. Then it should just try to run into sort of an aim state and turn if this works. think it was actually a bit better. So what's happening is that it's trying to change the aim state all over again, and while it's doing that, it's not turning as it should. So maybe by what I'm doing by changing all over, it doesn't matter. I forget to swatch. So I forgot to swatch the video over again, so sorry about that. Getting a second monitor set up here so it's a bit easier to see what you're seeing then. I think this is actually the issue now, that we're calling this for pet motion state for each bullet actually, while we should just call it once when we start this. And yeah, so I have one way of checking here the next recording item, that's just if it's completed. This is basically just I can have some special handling, so if the next there's an animation here, I can do it slightly different than otherwise. So I'm thinking if I can only call this maybe once for each sequence of these actor shoot at by impact recording, then that might work. Or maybe I can get the pet motion state, that's probably the best way. So get the pet motion state, and if that is the same thing I'm trying to set it to, I'm not going to try to set it. So this was then a parameter on the pet. So more people's watching it. Thanks for showing. Good to see you. Well, I'll probably be continuing for maybe 10 more minutes before I'll finish this experiment, but I think it's a good way to show you a bit more on the progress and what's sort of stopping me from progress as well. So there's only a force one. I can't see now I can actually get the motion state from the user. So then I guess I need to capture it myself. I'm just gonna check the scripts as well if they are using this anywhere with some different parameters. 0, 0, 0. Seems to be almost always 0, 0, 0. Here's 1, they're doing it 1, 1, 0. When they're walking, might be something to play around with. I think the main thing is we can't call it. So just thinking what data do we have access to here. There's no global variables to check this. So in the sort of interface for recording completed, I have the next recording item. So there I can check if we're going from a sort of gunfiring item to a different one. But I don't have that when I'm executing the natives. Maybe I should just implement that. Yeah, that makes sense. Just have to update all the different recording afterwards, but that's okay. So then I just need to find the everything is sort of inheriting from a master class here, and I just need to say that this one should also have a reference to and then next recording item, like that. And then all the other ones will of course now not implement this interface. Then I need to make sure that the whole engine calling this, basically the playback of this, which will be, I guess this is a replay of it, but I need to find, probably haven't done much shit. Yeah, so this is basically the whole method which runs the replay, so it's quite generic, the whole code here. So some special handling for the first location, and then we're checking if we play the first one, and then we're actually here sending it in, calling the recording item, the method there, and then we need to just pass the next recording item in the same way as before. So I guess we can just do like this. So I probably could just move this outside. Yeah, we'll just move it up. I can do it over here. There's no really loop here, so I'm just checking if there's something where I just skip. No, I'll just add it here. So that's the next recording item, and then I'm just passing that then to this method here. I think should be sufficient, and probably this one as well. So this just allows us from each of the recording items to actually make a decision which native to execute based on what the next recording is. I probably should have had the previous as well. That's probably the most important thing for this functionality. Okay, let's add it at the same time. I guess we should have had something here if it's not the first one. But I guess we can just check for. Yeah, let's just check for if that's larger than. It's larger than equal to 1. We'll just get the previous one. Yeah. So then we need to update this one. This one I struggle a lot with, this share pointers and vectors. Like, yeah, this is not what you would normally have to look at in other languages. But okay, that's just integration. Yeah, you're actually not seeing my code, so I'm going to swap back to the code. So basically now we're just adding a feature where we can look at the next, or make a decision for what natives execute based on the previous and the next recording item. You need to run that through all of this code. These might be null as well, so that's not an issue. So previous there, I think there was one more place where I was actually calling this. Let me see. No, that's the wrong one. this one. Okay, so now this part of the code should be working, and then it's the issue with all of these different, well, I guess, do I need to do anything in the header file? Yes, most likely. So well, I guess we'll just search and replace this one with the one with previous and next. And we'll do that with this one. Is that the only one? That was not the only one. Okay, that's strange. So let's just do this wherever. Oh, it needs to be override as well. So this is basically the interface for all of these recording items. And that's the default implementation for it. So, and this is just a header file. Then I also need to change all the actual implementations. Just include this extra parameter. For some reason the search replace didn't work, but okay, so then that should be okay, and then it's just inside here where we need to include all of these where they're actually failing. So let's just I guess this is what we need to do. And once we've done this, hopefully everything should be okay. Just a few more ones. Okay, trying to build. Probably be something which fails now, but okay, so there's one place where I'm calling it, so I'm not including everything. So this is when I'm, where's this? It's actually when I'm trying to skip to the next. So there's a function from the menu if you, yeah, so I will just need to implement the same logic I did in over here with getting the previous and next recording items. That needs to be done there as well. There's sort of no common way I can just reuse that. So that's the recording item, then we need to the next and previous, and then just passing them into here. Alright, so it's building. So then we can back to where we started, which was this shootout by impact recording. What we wanted to do, we basically saw an issue with this pet motion state shouldn't be called every time. It should only be called if we are coming from an animation sequence recording which is not firing But then we might have an issue if you're not walking and just starting with recording. But I think I'll just skip that for now and just make sure that when I tested it, I record some movement first. So basically here I'm just seeing what is the previous recording item. I guess that's the best way of doing it. And if that's if first thing recording item, this will basically just return a null pointer if we can't cast it into this one. So then I'll just log it and force it. So this is first. Alright, so hopefully this logic will then just call this once. So we will only call it if the previous item was not a shooting. So if you shoot and then start moving and then shoot again, it should be called once and not again afterwards. So it'll be interesting to see what effect it will have. Yeah, I think that's what I need to do. So I'll just copy that over and give it a test. Alright, let's switch over to the game. Alright, let's switch over to the game. And we need to reload the mod. Alright, so like I said, I need to make sure I move a bit first in case this doesn't work. So, and then I'm gonna right, let's give it a test. So it's definitely not working. Let me check the log file to see what actually is happening. Sorry, you can't see the log file. It's not top secret or anything. So yeah, so it's being called every time, and I think I know why. Basically, because I'm checking if the previous was a firing. But I'm guessing only if this is not the null reference, I should be doing this. So it's the exact opposite from now. Let's do a new test. I guess this will be the last thing I'm actually trying to do today to see how this works. Hopefully it's the path we can continue on. I hate it if it's sort of a dead end and we can't continue with that path. So now I feel that the firing while you're moving is working better. So now we're just testing when you're not moving. But first I need to move a bit to get recording, and then I need to almost crashed, yeah. It's running it a couple of times, which is interesting. But it doesn't stay there for some reason. Just checking the logs, what's happening. It's doing it twice. But I'm basically forcing the state and then it's going away afterwards. Not sure why that should be like that. It could be there's some natives which you need to sort of call all the time, but this is sort of triggering animation. That was the problem we had first anyway. Interesting. Switch over to the code view. I'm just gonna see if anyone else has been using this on the GTA forums. Of course not. Where am I? Oh, search all forums. I've been searching the wrong forum. That's a good start. Interesting. Probably doesn't help me at all. Out forest. Yeah, this is the players. It doesn't really help us much at all. I could be playing around with the parameters here, but it's most likely won't help me too much. So I'm just going to check how GTA is doing this in their scripts, if they're looping through this or... I'm guessing something I do is cancelling it afterwards. So could be this heading, so I'm doing it immediately afterwards. That would be a shame. Thinking hard. I'm just going to disable this for now, just to see if it is without that, if it works, because if it is something else, it might be something else I'm doing in the framework that I'm sort of resetting too much in between the different recordings. So building just a new version, just with this forcing them into state and swapping over to the game. So it doesn't seem to be anything within the natives I'm calling within the recording. So there has to be something else. So we did cover this code. This is basically, well, not here, but I guess this one. This is actually a great feature in Visual Studio. You can actually see what code you've changed the last. So very easy to find back on the code where you're working on. So this one is being run once per tick while you're playing back a recording. And in general, when we're swapping, basically if the recording has been completed, we are executing any natives afterwards. And if it's not the last one, then we're getting the next one and just executing. This one used to be there, but it's not there anymore, so we're not really changing anything. So there's nothing in this code which is doing any problem thing, even though it's being called from this top for each one. But it's not doing anything special. The whole sort of, I guess the main loop for this is, yeah, so here is the main loop for the whole mod. A lot of minor things being built up over time, checking different keys, and then there's something which is being done for each tick, like the HUD, so it's the menu of it, and then time lapse if we're doing that, and if we have any recordings. And also something checking if you died, because then you need to prevent a crash. So we're basically stuck with that. This here, it doesn't do what it sort of forces it, but it just removes it away afterwards. Because what happens that this is being called, this doesn't do anything. Does this one then? I don't think, and I need it anyway to be able to do it. And then it will call this one to check if it's finished, and then it will basically do this one, which doesn't do anything. So I guess I'm left with trying to get this force pet motion state to work. I could try one of the other hashes mentioned in the documentation, just for, so, and those for string. Remember this way of getting the hash based on a string. What was that again? Get hash key. Let me just try that. So we're gonna try a different version of this, and to just get it from a string. I think I can just type it directly. Yeah, so thank Facelsoft for the comments. I really need to find some way to be notified about the chat channel while I'm doing this. Alright, so then we're back to a new update version of, and I guess the only change we have now is that we are testing a different motion state. It should be tried to run actually, while this in place now. He's trying to doing something, but it's not really. Again, we're seeing he's doing it only the first time, so it should force them into this code. So we should see him walk over, and then we'll try to run once, and then he's back again. So there is something calling actually cancelling this. Very strange. And now we're basically not doing a lot. Well, we're still doing this one, but we have no. That shouldn't be run here. So something is creating problems with this. It doesn't work like we want it to do. We could try out with these parameters. So I'm just gonna check. So it's 0, 1, 1, 0 is used 1. It seems the last parameter at least is always 0 from what I'm checking. And there is also something else to simulate the player input gate, which might sort of, yeah, it's related to this. I'm just going to try 1 with 0. It doesn't seem like some of these other ones, they've actually have binary flags. So there's heaps of different variants, like animations. There's so many different ways you can run the animations. This just seems to be just a Boolean value. So again, deploying it. And probably, yeah. So let's get back into the game, test it again. All right. So again, the thing we're doing now is we're just trying it to get it to run this motion state, and not really go out of this motion state until we tell them not to. So I should try to run now once what you get here. But again, it doesn't seem to be stuck there. Which is, it seems to be a bit better than before though. But it's still just jerky. It doesn't really give us the effect we want to have. So these parameters didn't really seem to do it for us. So it would be interesting if there was another way of doing it, because basically we want to force them into this aiming. We could play an animation on it, but then we had no idea that it's pointing in the right direction. But it could be an animation together with the heading. Well, that could be sufficient. But there's different animation for each weapon, so it would not be a good way to code this. Alright, I think I'll head off the live stream for now. Thanks for watching this experiment. Please, I'm not sure, this live recording is probably been recorded as a YouTube video as well, I think. So if you have any comments on how the live stream was, feel free to drop a comment by, or on some of the other YouTube videos, or on the GTA mods, GTA 5 mods as well. So okay, thanks for now.